Welcome to Limitless, the Blind Beginnings podcast where we discuss tips, tricks, and current topics related to all things in the blind and partially sighted community. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the founder of Blind Beginnings and your host, Shawn Marcellet, and whatever co-host is on this week. Now, here's your host, Shawn.
Welcome back to Limitless, the Blind Beginnings podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Marcellet. Today, we have a very special episode. Our episode is being released on Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is a national day of giving where charities ask their donors and supporters to support the important work that they do. At Blind Beginnings, we recognize what a difficult time this has been for so many people. So instead of asking for donations today, we wanted to take part in the giving by giving thanks to our donors and supporters. I have 4 of our youth leaders with me today, and they're here to help demonstrate how your support has impacted them personally. Kolby, Nika, Seerat, and Jinnie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we'll start by each of you introducing yourselves. If you can just share a little bit about your name, how long you've been involved with Blind Beginnings, and your level of vision.
Hi, I'm Kolby, and I'm totally blind, and I've been involved with Blind Beginnings since 2012, and I'm 24.
Hi, I'm Jinnie. I'm 20 years old. I've been involved in Blind Beginnings since I was 14 years old. I have a condition called bilateral microphthalmia, which means my eyes were too small for me when I was born. So as a result of that, I'm totally blind.
Hi, I'm Nika. I'm 19 years old, and I've been involved in Blind Beginnings since I was 9, so literally basically a decade now. And my eye condition is Peter's anomaly, so the front part of my eyes, which is my cornea and iris, aren't formed properly, and most of my vision is in my left eye.
Hi, I am Seerat. I am 23 years old, and I first became involved with Blind Beginnings in 2014, so that would be approximately 7 years now. My eye condition is complicated, so usually I just tell people that I can see large shapes and very, very large print.
So how did you each hear about Blind Beginnings? How did you find us?
I found Blind Beginnings, like I said, when I was 14, and I found you through Sunny Hill Hospital. Someone recommended that I take part in the youth leadership program, and I actually didn't even know what it was. My mom just signed me up for it. So they just kind of told me, you'll have fun. You're just going, for a sleepover, sort of. But I met you, Shawn, when I was 6, but I don't think I ever really knew where you were from.
Yeah.
So I first joined Blind Beginnings. I think it was just after I had lost my vision, and it was a vision teacher, one of my vision teachers, that suggested I check out Blind Beginnings and the youth leadership workshop as well.
I was first introduced to Blind Beginnings through my vision teacher. I remember one day she came up to me and said, "Have you met Shawn? She's really cool. She was part of the Paralympic sports. She is totally blind and runs an organization." And I said no. So that's how I got introduced to you and Blind Beginnings as well. I remember having a few different conversations about blindness with you. I remember being very uncomfortable about having a disability and being visually impaired. And then I became more involved with some of the other programs we have from there onwards.
So my parents actually knew Shawn before I joined Blind Beginnings, just because, you're really active in the community and stuff. And the first time I remember meeting you was when I was 9, and this was the summer before I joined Blind Beginnings because you worked at that camp that I went to. And I vaguely remember I was asking you so many questions and hounding off your ear because that's clearly what I did back then. And then my vision teacher told my mom about Blind Beginnings and said, oh, Shawn runs this organization. And, she sat me down and basically said, hey, they have these Saturday Junior Explorers Club kind of events. Would you be interested in going? And I'm like, yeah, I had so much fun at that camp, and that was my first experience around blind people. So I figured, having this opportunity to connect with people every month would be a lot of fun. And it was, and I was obviously little, so I didn't join the youth leadership program until way later, but those first 3 years were kind of more focused on building life experiences and having fun.
I totally remember you from that first camp. And you did have a lot of questions. So what program is most memorable to you and why?
So one of my most memorable programs that we did, and this was a more recent one, was the Harry Potter book club, just because I am a total Potterhead. And when that concept was first introduced, I was so excited. And it was really cool because in the summer, every Monday, we got together and a couple of our youth leaders, Clement and Keisha, would read a couple chapters. And we had kind of a big age range because there was people from their early teens all the way to their late 20s. So it's kind of a nice age-appropriate activity to bring multiple people together.
This is a very loaded question because for me it's very difficult to pick just one program. But when I think back and I reflect on this journey of being with Blind Beginnings, I would say that the first time I attended the youth leadership training weekend was one of the most memorable programs that I have done at Blind Beginnings, only because that was my very first time sort of being introduced to multiple other blind and partially sighted youth who were around my age, went through similar experiences as me. And that was something special. And we soon became sort of this giant family that would get together every single month and we would work on different sorts of programs. I learned everything from ordering my own meal to advocating for myself. And I thought that was huge, and everything else in between, whether it be learning about body language or, something as simple as how to use a fork and knife. So these types of things were very, very helpful.
So the most fun for me has really been helping and volunteering at summer camps. I really enjoy interacting with the families and just being there as a role model, because I really believe that Blind Beginnings offers so much to families. And so I just want to be able to help families. And so being at the camps has allowed me to do that. And also we had a speaking bureau training workshop for one weekend. That was really cool because we got to improve in speaking and body language, giving presentations, and lots of things like that. And I'm usually one person that kind of just doesn't prepare anything. It just goes off just the top of my head. And I really realized how it's important to write and be prepared when giving a presentation, and how much I can improve my speaking and message that I want to get across. Those are probably the funnest things for me at Blind Beginnings.
I would say that the flash mob and Do the Grind Blind have really impacted me. So in 2015, Blind Beginnings held a flash mob in Metrotown Mall here in Vancouver. And we got a bunch of youth, children, and even family members together. And we took about a year to come up with a dance, learn it all together. We incorporated our white canes. We selected our songs, and you can actually go find it on YouTube. It's also available in descriptive video as well. And then in October of 2015, we picked a date and we all went to Metrotown Mall and actually performed it for the people in the mall. And that was just so empowering for me. That was one of my first big projects with Blind Beginnings, but also because I think when it comes to physical activity, like dancing, many people have beliefs that people with disabilities can't really do that. And I remember when I would have drama club or recreation stuff in PE where people would be dancing, I wouldn't really get to participate because I wouldn't know what everyone around me is doing. I don't know if I look silly, things like that. And so doing something like this, I knew that everyone around me was doing the same moves, and I knew that I wasn't really going to get lost out of the formation. And I think doing such a public performance like this really showed me that that was just a barrier that needed to be broken down for the beliefs that I held about myself, but also to show society that we can do this. And then later in 2017, we also did Do the Grind Blind. So for those who don't know, there's a mountain in Vancouver. It's called the Grouse Grind. It has roughly about 3,800 steps, if I'm getting that correctly. They're all uneven. It's not equal stairs. And a bunch of youth, there are 9 or 10 of us, we got together and we did 4 months of training. So each month we had a different hike leading up to the Grouse Grind. And there was actually a documentary filmed, and that is also available on YouTube as well, of our entire experience. And so we did that event with a sighted guide. So we had to learn to communicate with our guides and listen to when they were telling us about how high a step was. And we also had to communicate to them about our needs and what we needed, as well as we were, again, breaking down stereotypes. Again, when I was in PE and people were playing soccer or students were playing games, I was often the one sitting in a corner just reading. I remember I would just have to walk a lap sometimes, and I never thought I could do anything like this. In fact, on the first hike, it was just a flat hike around Burnaby Lake. And I had never been active in my life. And when I did that, I was probably one of the last people there. And I totally thought it was something I was not going to pursue. I don't know why I continued on. I don't remember. And then I remember that once I got closer to the Grouse Grind, I think it was the one hike before Do the Grind Blind, I was actually one of the first people up there. So again, it's, taking those beliefs that have been filtered into me and making them into something new and helping society see a different perspective of having a disability.
What was the program that had the most profound impact on you? So something that changed your perspective somehow or empowered you in a unique way?
I think, again, I would give the same answer. I think what makes things fun for me is if they challenge me in some sort of way. I'm just that sort of person. I've had many fun times, but I think the Flash Mob and Do the Grind Blind were also the ones that had such a big impact on me, because now if I ever want to dance or want to take a class, at least I know I can do that. And if I ever want to hike or, maybe try going around Burnaby Lake again, although I always say I will never do that, I think the results would be quite different. So I think those two, again, would probably be the ones that have changed my perspective.
So I believe that the youth leadership training really moved me and changed me. It was definitely the first time I got to meet other people who were partially sighted or blind. And really, I had never had that experience before. It was really at a critical time for me because just having lost so much my sight, it was such a new thing for me that having the support from Blind Beginnings and learning that I could still do everything I enjoyed just differently, and there was still so much that I could enjoy and do in my life, because I honestly thought that because I couldn't see, there was just not a lot for me. And it was really helpful for me to see you, Shawn, and the other people that were living with vision loss and happy, successful, and just doing everything like normal, really. And I think that's why it stands out the most for me. And it's definitely hard to choose something because there's so many great things that I've been involved with Blind Beginnings.
Very early on, I remember there was a workshop called What Happens After Grad. And that took place when I was in high school, where we talked about exactly that, what happens once you graduate, because these are big things, they're big questions. And anyways, for a regular teenager, it's a big decision to figure out what you want to do in life. And on top of that, when you have a disability, that sometimes makes things a little bit more challenging. And so I remember when we talked about, Shawn and I specifically explored many different careers that I was interested in. And Shawn told me that, hey, you can do them. I was very surprised because I have always been under the impression that because you have a disability, blindness in particular, you're confined to specific jobs, which is not true at all. You can do anything that you set your mind to. I mean, barring maybe driving a bus or flying a plane, because, I mean, for obvious reasons, there are physical limitations. It's about what you put your mind to. And I remember I was very much interested in taking up the sciencey fields, which are innately very visual. And even though you need a ton of sight to perhaps look at things like chemistry models or anatomy, muscles, it's not impossible. There are other ways of getting around that. You know, perhaps you can engage in looking at descriptions rather than pictures. You could talk about those things. You could feel models. And that was huge to me because I figured out that I can do something that I am really, really passionate about, something that I love, as opposed to saying, okay, you have to do this because this is all that you're left to. And maybe back in the day that was the case, but today I feel like anything is possible. And that is something that I learned through that workshop.
So for me, just like Jinnie mentioned earlier, I would also say the flash mob, just because rewind 5 years ago, and during the midst of kind of, preparing for all of it and rehearsing, I was in a really dark place. It's still really hard to think about now, but I had really bad depression and anxiety. And at that time, I had a lot of medical issues that were recently diagnosed. So I wasn't able to play goalball, which is what I used to play, because I couldn't play high contact sports. And I needed some type of physical outlet. And I kind of decided to try and find a dance studio, because that is something I was told ever since I was 5 that I would never be able to do. And during my search, I got rejected by 3 different studios, which, when you're already at rock bottom, it's really hard when you get rejected when you're already at a low place. And I really needed some just positivity and hope in my life. And when we did the flash mob, and as soon as we finished, I was like, you know what? Even if I don't find a studio, I performed in public. This is on YouTube where anyone can find it. So you know what? Even if I can't find a dance studio, like, who cares? This is such a cool accomplishment and something that helped a lot with my confidence. And I honestly don't think I would be able to do the things I did without it. And eventually I was able to advocate for myself to find a dance studio and was able to dance on stage and actually make my dreams come true, which is really, really cool because I wouldn't have actually been able to do it without the strength that the flash mob gave me through Blind Beginnings.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Nika. Why is it important to you, or what motivates you to continue to volunteer and be involved with Blind Beginnings?
I think what comes to my head is why not? When someone or something has given so much to you, how do you really pay that back? You can't really do that. And I think for me, now it's my turn, right? It's, passing it forward. Now that I was supported, it's my turn to be involved and support the younger generation who's going to come next and fill in those gaps that I had to overcome. Just because I had to, have it be a little bit more challenging and not be exposed to Blind Beginnings until later, maybe I can be a part of that change and help other kids and families across BC to do that. And I like to think of Blind Beginnings as my baby, and one day I will inherit the organization and take over. It is not a joke. I have been asking Shawn if I can be the executive director, and I want to do that one day because I want to be just like her. Rob, do not edit that out, please. It's true. No one ever. Can you please leave me in your will, Shawn?
I don't own Blind Beginnings.
Well, how do I take it from you?
You just have to apply for the job at some point when I'm ready to quit.
Retire.
Yeah.
Deceased. I'm kidding.
Okay. Kolby, how about you?
Blind Beginnings does such an awesome job of really supporting the whole family with all the different programs that we have. And so really, I want to give back and help more families.
The reason why I still want to be involved in Blind Beginnings is because Blind Beginnings helped me at a time when I really needed it the most, and I'm not really sure what I would have done if it weren't around. And it breaks my heart thinking that there could be other people, going through that, and I really want to help them, and I want to make sure, I just want this organization to be around forever, just because I think it'll really help a lot of people who are in that situation. And I think mental health is a real thing. People are getting introduced to Blind Beginnings when they're babies or even 4 or 5, which is awesome because, I'm lucky that I got introduced to it when I was 9. Like Jinnie and Kolby got introduced to it later. But ideally, I would have loved to have this when I was really little, just to be surrounded by this support network and family from early childhood. So I think it's awesome that other people are getting involved and that they'll have the support they need if they're also going through a rough time in life.
Similar to what Kolby said, I wish that I had discovered Blind Beginnings when I was younger. And now that I have, I don't want to let go because it has been impactful, and so much so on so many different levels that I feel like I'm still learning. I feel like I'm still not fully there yet. And I have benefited from it. I feel like I'm continuing to benefit from it. And I am hoping, like what everybody has said here, that more people would find out about Blind Beginnings, and hopefully they will be able to benefit from it in a similar way, and even more.
What would you like to say to our donors?
I just want to say that we are very thankful that you have been continuing to support Blind Beginnings and all the programs that we offer, because Blind Beginnings offers programs to not just children and youth, but also their families and parents and pretty much whoever needs it. It's all encompassing. When you guys are able to provide that sort of anchor and the support in order to run these programs, it means so much to more than just one life.
All the things that I do and have done, like dance, competitive swimming, and university, I wouldn't have been able to do without the confidence that I gained from Blind Beginnings. And all these programs wouldn't be possible without everyone who's donated. So I would say thank you so much for making me and a bunch of other people's dreams come true.
First of all, I would like to say thank you so much. Without your support, I know I wouldn't be the same person I am today. I believe that my journey through vision loss with Blind Beginnings has given me so much confidence, independence, and strength to accomplish any of my dreams. You're making a difference in so many lives that really matter.
I would say thank you. Thank you so much. Anything helps, and I really appreciate your generous contributions. Without them, I probably wouldn't be able to realize that I can live a rich and fulfilling life just like every other person in our world. You're helping, many people, and sometimes it might just look like a statistic, but it's really, really impactful to us, and we really appreciate it.
If you had to summarize your experience with Blind Beginnings in just one word, what would that word be?
This is really hard for me, but I think I would say hope. Hope is really what I've gained. Hope for my future. Hope that I can do anything I believe in, and hope that society will become more accommodating to all people.
Overall, I would say this has been a journey, and if I had to sum up that journey in one word, it would be discovery, just because I learned so much in these 10 years. When I was 9, I was like, how can a blind person run a summer camp? And I discovered so much, like how I am able to be a successful, powerful woman in the workforce. I discovered that I am able to do extracurricular activities that might go against the status quo of what someone expects me to do. I am able to partake in hobbies that anyone else my age would do.
So the 2 words that I would pick, because I can't just pick one, would be resilience and empowerment, because Blind Beginnings has taught me how to not give up and keep going. And that empowers me to continue to live the life that I want to live.
The one word I would say would probably be savior. That's not to say that blind people need rescuing of any sort. I think more so that Blind Beginnings has saved me from my own thoughts that I had about myself, about my goals, achievements, about my abilities, saved me from the view that society was repeating over and over and over again. And I've just been through a lot, and I think that if Blind Beginnings wasn't here, I hate to think sometimes, like, would I have even gone to school? Where would I have ended up? And it really scares me to think about where I would be if Blind Beginnings wasn't here. So I think savior is my word, because I always know that it's there, it's constant, it's like a rock and an anchor.
Thank you so much for being here today and sharing what Blind Beginnings means to you. And a huge thank you to all of our donors, volunteers, and supporters who have been giving for the last 12 years. As you can tell from listening to these lovely ladies, the difference, you're making a difference in so many people's lives. And this is just a small sample of the people that we're supporting. So on this Giving Tuesday, we want to give thanks. Thank you for your continued support. Thanks, Jinnie, Seerat, Kolby, Nika. Thank you so much for joining us today. You've been listening to Limitless, the Blind Beginnings podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Marcellet. If you have a question or a comment, please send us an email at limitless@blindbeginnings.ca. And please join us next time.
For more information on Blind Beginnings and its mission to inspire and support children and youth who are blind or partially sighted and their families, visit www.blindbeginnings.ca.